So my dude's Valk here, and today I'm going to be talking about what is, in my opinion, the best current DPS in Tower Fantasy. Now, this probably won't hold up for a couple of releases, because I'm pretty sure Claudia is going to be next, and Claudia is going to be very strong. I don't know if Claudia is going to be DPS or what. I haven't really looked at her kit on the Chinese side, but I imagine she's going to be incredibly powerful, and probably a little bit more powerful than Samir. But I want to talk about Samir, why I don't really want to go into too much why she's my favorite archetype, because I love dual pistols. This is pew-pews I pick in literally every MMO. Gunslinger's my thing. I grew up with a lot of grandparents and older people who really liked old westerns, and it got me into gunslingers and stuff like that, and I really love the archetype. But enough history, enough bias, but I want to show you guys today, because I went incredibly hard to try to go ahead and get a A6 Samir. And now I've got her A4 currently, but I have the A6 basically guaranteed. Whenever the Nemesis banner times out, not this one, but this one, I will get 81 coins over to here. I currently have 160, and then once this week resets, I will be able to get more dual EM stars. So I'll be at 160 plus 80 is 240, which is just enough. So once the week resets, I can buy one. Once Nemesis' banner leaves, I'll be able to get the other in 12 days. So what makes Samir so good that I would want to go so hard on her? Well, there's a couple reasons. One is her Simulacra passive. Now, if you don't know, you can go to Awaken and you can start gifting these characters gifts that you get from Find Gifts that you can get on a daily basis to go ahead and try to level up their passives, or unlock their passives, and Samir has one of the better ones in the game. I'm just going to read the max version of it to you, because at max it is very powerful. So you grant 1 stack of concentration for every 4 seconds when Samir receives no damage. A lot of times with Samir, you have either a shield, or you are just really far away because she is a ranged character, but she has good engaged tools at the same time, but she's really, obviously, dual guns meant to be ranged. Each stack increases damage dealt by 4% and can stack up to 5 times. So that's a 20% damage increase. After being hit, Samir loses 1 stack of concentration. English is a hard language, man. I'm really messing up my words today. But Samir loses 1 stack of concentration up to 1 stack per 2 seconds. So basically, you get hit, you lose stacks. You don't get hit, you gain stacks. High risk, high reward, up to 20% damage dealt. Very powerful. One of the better ones in the entire game. And that's just the start. So next we're going to get into, before I get into anything and I get into why I went hard, I want to show you how fast Samir attacks. If you look, she attacks incredibly quickly. The entire normal attack line she does is very fast. She's a very fast attacker. It's one of the things she excels at very heavily. And the fact that she really quickly pumps out damage. It's a lot of light damage. It's not very big hits. Like Meryl, it's not like 1 or 2 big chunks. It's light damage repeatedly, constantly hitting. It's very important that we set that standard going forward. So, let's go ahead, let's read the weapon now, and let's look at the stats and look at everything and see what makes her the best in my opinion. If you guys like Raiden Shogun and Genshin Impact, you are going to love Samir because she has a lot of the same things. She doesn't ignore defense, but the C6 on Raiden Shogun is essentially the exact same thing as the Advancement 6 on Samir. Essentially, it's the same thing in practice, but not, not literally the exact same thing. So let's go ahead, let's read. This is her normal attack line. Bullet Rain is whenever she jumps in the air. There's a helicopter, I'm sure you guys all know. Jumps in the air, does a little helicopter, very cool. Her energy burst is whenever you hold and you hold the, you go ahead and let it out. Do a lot of kicks, or do a lot of shoots. Really nice. And then the hold attack while she's in the air is going to go ahead and bring you heel stomp down onto something. You can launch it in the air and do air combos. Very good. The amount of launches in PvP are very good. Rising Lightning Kick is a very strong move in PvP. If you dodge, you go to normal attack, you will go ahead and kick them in the air and strongly suspend them, and you'll go up in the air and join them. So it is this exact move right here. You dodge, and then you do that move. It brings you up in the air with them, and that way you can do combos in the air with them and go ahead and deal a lot of damage that way. Very strong, but now we get into the skill and the discharge. Very powerful, especially the skill. I'm going to explain the Awakening 5, or the Advancement 5 now, ahead of time, before I go ahead and do anything else, because the Advancement 5 really only affects the skill, but we'll go ahead and talk about everything else in a bit after I get through the discharge. So the electro field puts down like a giant, well, field, essentially a barrier, that just goes ahead and does tick damage inside of it. It's not really anything until you get the Advancement 5. Advancement 5 doubles the duration of the electric field and pulls the targets into the center. So now it becomes a form of CC. It is very, very good. It's going to constantly suck them into the center. And whenever you combine that with other stuff we'll discuss later in the kit, it's going to be a lot of damage grouped up. It's a lot of AoE damage. It's going to be super powerful for a lot of modes. Now the discharge is essentially the exact same thing, but it removes the buffs and deals a ton more damage, and it applies Electrified. Electrified is a state where you just see them kind of like getting tasered, where they're getting tasered in place. Electrified is very important to be able to trigger as Samir or with Samir's weapons, because you get a lot of bonuses from attacking electrified enemies. So basically, the discharge is just a bigger version of the skill, does a lot more damage, and it removes all buffs. So really, really good. So now we get into the advancements, and the very first one is going to kind of set the tone for everything, because everything revolves around this very first advancement. Trigger an electrical explosion on the target after landing a critical hit, dealing additional damage equal to 30% of attack to the target and nearby enemies. If you have Samir's matrices, you have Samir's specific set, you can increase this by even more. It goes up to 90% of attack if you have it fully maxed out. Very, very strong. Has a 0.2 second cooldown. That way it can't internally trigger itself, because if you notice, it's literally any critical hit is going to trigger an electrical explosion as long as you have the dual EM stars out, meaning your skill, your ult, everything that is doing tick damage, if it crits, it will trigger an explosion. There's lots and lots of ways to constantly trigger these explosions, literally on the 0.2 second cooldown. Very, 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 very powerful advancement. Then we get into another incredibly powerful advancement. Increases crit rate to electrified targets by 40%. 40% crit rate. Very strong. Electrified explosions extend the duration of electrified effects by 0.5 seconds up to a maximum of 5 seconds. Very, very good. Double attack base growth. Very strong as well. We already went over Advancement 5, and now we go into my favorite advancement and why I went so hard on this character. Triggering an electrical explosion. Remember, it triggers once every 0.2 seconds, meaning you can trigger 5 times in a single second as long as you are triggering it on cooldown. Reduces all skill cooldowns, not just Samir's, not just the dual EM stars, but every weapon's cooldowns by 1 second. Meaning you can, every second, if you are constantly outputting damage with Samir, you can reduce your skill cooldowns by 5 seconds per second, right? So that means within 5 seconds, if you're still doing it, you reduce your skill cooldowns by 25 seconds. It adds up a lot, and the reason now it's not going to be super strong whenever I get her A6 at the moment is because we are still incredibly early into this game. Right now, we do not have a lot of crits. I have 21.36% crit and literally base crit damage. I have no extra crit damage. I have 50%. So right now, the crit attacks are not as valuable. But let's take a look at Genshin Impact. At the beginning of Genshin Impact, a lot of characters were just raw numbers that whenever we very first started the game, we thought like Fizz Fischl was good. Everybody wanted Razor, everybody wanted Luke, everybody wanted all these characters that ended up getting hard outscaled later on due to crit rate, crit damage, and better builds and more optimized builds. As we get further into the game, I fully believe Samir is going to shine even further whenever builds become more heavily optimized. So I've gone over everything. Now let me show you in practice to an extent, because obviously I'm not going to be critting every single time, but you can get the gist of it. You can get the idea of how easy it's going to be to constantly trigger that Awakening 6, or Advancement 6, excuse me, and be able to reduce your entire team's cooldowns. So let's go ahead, let's not burn Meryl, because if we do, they will die. So let's pop this, and you can see all the damage procs, all the damage numbers. Well, even with having only 20% crit rate, you can see all the damage numbers constantly coming up. You can see the damage coming out. Absolute insane amount of damage that this girl can do. She can just dump out damage. Let me go ahead and break this shield real quick. I'm going to go ahead and break the Treasure Guard's shield. Hopefully we don't kill him, and we did anyways. We went ahead and killed him with Meryl because Meryl's absolutely cracked. But you got to at least see with Samir that the crits were constantly popping. And whenever it was popping off there, you saw the absolute explosion of just damage numbers being hit. meaning that you are constantly lowering that skill cooldown with the A6, and it's just going to be absolutely massive. Even the wormhole, even with the wormhole, whenever I ran it, I was able to get high crit rate in it. That's kind of what I focused on because I'm running Samir, and I was able to beat it using Samir whenever it's resistant to Volt. For me, I was struggling because Volt was resistant, so I beat all 3 difficulties while using a Volt team because that's all I have. That's what I invested in. That's what I'm going all in on, is a Volt team, a super strong Volt team, and that's what I wanted from the get-go. So that's what I used. And I was even able to do that even without the Awakening 6 active, or the Advancement 6. I keep calling it Awakening. Even without the Advancement 6 active, I was still able to crush it because Samir is just an absolutely fantastic damage dealer. Anyways, that's the video. Let me know if you guys agree with me or disagree with me. Hopefully all this talking and all this stuff makes sense, and hopefully you guys see why I went super hard on Samir. I'm not saying you should quit free to play and go super hard on Samir, but I'm saying in this game, SSRs are very easy to get, much more so than Genshin. And if you are looking for a character to max invest in, Samir is definitely one of them. Samir is a very, very strong character that's going to hold up even further down the line, purely because of her abilities to go ahead and just reduce the skill cooldowns of allies, so you have higher uptime, because there's a lot of stuff tied to skills. Anyways, thank you guys for watching as always. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, whether you agree with me, disagree with me, whatever. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.